allocated in last year's budget, 2025, but 20 million was actually spent in the revised estimates. Gatwi Dolly asked about the apparent missing allocation for this year. Dowlath replied, "This grant, we would look at it for the midterm review." Gatwi Dolly asked what the minister meant, saying, "Is it that you will allocate in the midterm review, or you are looking to determine whether or not you will allocate?" Dowlath replied, "Chairman, through you, it is currently under review." Internationally, the US has announced new sanctions targeting Russia's two largest oil companies in an effort to pressure Moscow to negotiate a peace deal in Ukraine. The announcement came one day after US President Donald Trump said a planned meeting with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, in Budapest would be shelved indefinitely. Quote, "Every time I speak to Vladimir, I have good conversations and then they don't go anywhere," Trump said. While the economic impact to Russia is likely to be minimal, it represents a major shift in Trump's foreign policy, having previously said he would not impose sanctions until European nations cease buying Russian oil. The Kremlin said Russia was immune to the sanctions. Trump had repeatedly threatened tougher measures against Moscow, but has avoided them until now in hopes of brokering a peace deal in the 3.5-year-long invasion. Well, that's the news on the hour on WESN. I'm Sean Michael Small. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. Welcome to the program here on WESN. Our guest on this edition of the program, Mr. Derek Richardson. He's head of an organization known as the Estate Police Association in Trinidad and Tobago. We're talking about the situation regarding estate police people, given what is now what we call the big embrace between the government and the labor movement in Trinidad and Tobago. How does that play into Mr. Richardson's, and he outlined what he considers to be some of the, what I would call the second-class citizenship in terms of employment and in terms of workers and employers in Trinidad and Tobago regarding estate police people. There's a long list. We try and get through as many of them as possible. But that's the discussion on this edition of the program. Mr. Richardson, good to have you. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure having a conversation with you and the listening audience.
All right, so let's talk. In the context of what I would call, if you tell me if it's wrong, if my assumption is wrong, there has not been a time in which any government in Trinidad and Tobago has been sort of so involving trade union leaders in one industry or the other. That is correct?
Well, there have been history of trade union being in the parliament. This particular coalition of interests, as it's called, does have 3 persons. I think it's the first time we probably will have 3 persons actually in a sitting government. So yes, on that aspect, that is that's correct.
Yeah. In general terms, how do you look at it? Is this a great day for workers in the country, for the trade union movement, or for relations between the government and the labor leadership in the country?
Well, that's put it from the perspective of that there is a workers' agenda that is on the that the government, the sitting government, has decided to buy into. It was crafted by the labor movement, and now we are hearing that they're saying that they have adopted it as official policy of this government, which speaks to decent work and living wage and all that. So from that perspective, we applaud and we support any initiative which will seek the benefit and put the workers' rights on the table, squarely on the table, and have that open and frank discussion as to how the workers' agenda will be implemented. What are the measures in the short term and the long term that will be implemented? How do we do it? What is the value that we're looking for? And certainly the interaction is welcome. The interaction is welcome. The opportunity is welcome. We understand that, of course, that this is politics. So while there is a statement by the government to adopt and to do certain things, the end of the day, the proof will be ready in the evening. The pudding is there. It's how it is dispersed. How, so we wait and see. We wait and see exactly how this relationship will work out. We know there have had different iterations of these relationships, accords being signed and then, promises not kept. So we are cautiously optimistic in this, and that's how I could put it, right?
Right, and one of those trade union leaders is the Minister of Labor.
Yes.
Does that present a significant difference from what may have happened in the past?
Yes. Well, now, you did remember we did have two former trade union leaders as Minister of Labor, right? You had the Honorable Jennifer Baptiste, and then you did have McLeod.
Harold McLeod.
So that's it there. So again, at the end of the day, the Minister of Labor has to carry out government's agenda. And if the government's agenda is to engage with labor, and the government is serious about engaging with labor, then you have a successful Minister of Labor. But if the cabinet and the support system that has something with the Minister of Labor, then that workers' agenda may very well fall short. So we are wait and see. The early signs are that they have been engaging. So it is early days that to make a final assessment. It's just over 100 days that this government has been in office. And the early signs, according to the Estate Police Association, what we have seen, and some of my colleagues that I can stand, we have regular conversations with. From our perspective, we see that the engagement of discussions, fruitful discussions, engaging discussions, open and frank discussions, as far as we are concerned, is a lot better than we've ever had it under Metu, which started in 2018. So from that perspective, we are encouraged. But then again, we need to see some action.
Yeah. In the period of when this party, well, it was the People's Partnership at the time, 2010 to 2015, and that was the period in which you had a similar kind of arrangement as to who formed the government. There were, as you said, Mr. McLeod was the Minister of Labor, and there were other trade union leaders sort of there somewhere. But that fell apart in a kind of way midterm in that administration. I heard the trade union leader with my own ears one day saying they are corrupt.
Yes.
And it was one of the things that led to, you could tell me if I'm wrong, but a kind of break in the relations between trade unions and their leaders and the government at the time. What do you think has happened to may have changed that, such that it's another day in which there are smiles for now by people who have the interests of workers at heart with the administration in office?
Well, as I said, politics is a state interest, right? It's a conglomeration of particular interest. So the politicians do have an interest in having labor on their side. Labor now has to leverage that in order to get what labor sees as just and fair share of the national pie. The relationship has to be one of mutual respect. While we do support the workers' agenda and we support the efforts of the government, and thus far we've seen some initiatives, which we applaud. Again, it's early days, but we also reserve the right. We also reserve the right to over this government. Because Labour is part of the government in per se, I have two comrades who are junior ministers in the ministries, and I have Comrade Baptiste, who is the Labour minister. That does not be right to any of us for standing in the gateway and saying that you are going down the wrong way, and that we reserve that right to call the government to account. Because those of us who take trade unionism to be something very sacred, a coalition of interest is just that, a coalition of interest. And my interest is my members. And if I see the government is not holding to the interests of my members, then I reserve the right to call the government to order, as any serious trade unionist would. We also will work with the government on any issue that they request consultation with, because we think that is the way to go. It's not always an adversarial environment that you want to engender. You always want to engender a thing where both parties can sit down and have a conversation. The parties may not walk away from the table as is normal, walk away from the table feeling that I got everything I want, but you get some, and then probably you may set aside some for another day. But there are very integral things that that we think that have to happen right now, which from the interaction that we would have had with Comrade Baptiste is encouraging, right? We would have been able to meet with him on more than one occasion, and during the last 9 years of the PNM, I was only able to meet with the minister once, and we know that he had some restrictions placed upon him. And then even the other ministers, we weren't able to meet with them. So from that perspective of us advancing cause of state police and security officers, we are encouraged at this point in time.
What to you are some of the major points regarding what you lay out as the workers' agenda? What are some of the things that call for attention as we speak?
All right. So the minimum wage sectoral order. And we would have put out, take the pains and put out a whole page advertisement per se in the Express Page newspaper, indicating that security officers, those who we don't represent, but there's an interest because we are the big dogs in the private security industry. We have the voice. So we went out and we indicated to the national public that that security officers are, matter of fact, engaged under the minimum wage sectoral order, and of course shall be paid, lawfully should be paid 8 hours by straight time, 4 hours by time and a half, and overtime after, which is not done, which will really contrary to the laws, because there are judgments in the industrial court, which is the competent body to deal with matters concerning security officers, which indicates that security officers are in fact entitled to overtime after 8 hours and not the practice of overtime after 12 hours. Right? So we took the pains out because we looked at what is happening. We've seen all the practices. Already they're not paying even overtime after 12 hours. They are fining these officers all manner for $200. If you're working for $20.50 per hour and you've been fined $100, you're fined nearly half a shift. And you're fined $200, then it's going to be your whole shift. So those are some of the practices that we saw and looked at for a long while. And said, listen, the law is there for everyone, for the employer to follow and for the officers and the citizens trying to be able to follow. And then there is a sector of workers that have the benefit of the law behind it, right? And that the persons who employ security officers are not in keeping with the law, then we have to bring it out. Because what happened a couple of years ago, I think it was under Jennifer Baptiste primacy, there was a judgment in the special tribunal under Larry Achong, the ubiquitous Larry Achong, who didn't have any authority whatsoever to pronounce on security officers, stated that they are not entitled to overtime after 8 hours. And the Ministry of Labor at that point in time put it out on their website and has been there for a long number of years until they took it down, that the security industry is at 12 hours at straight time and overtime after 8, after 12. It was totally incorrect in law and by judgment coming out of the industrial court. So we have called upon our President Comrade Batiste to correct that wrong by putting it back out on the employers are in fact breaking the laws of trade and labor. So that's just one. That's just the issue of the compensation issues, and then we have issues concerning if the same reduction in wages by taking out unlawfully taking out fines and all of that from them.
Taking out what?
We have serious issues within their HR practices, in which they take out money from, as you're signing on as a security officer, you have to join a sports club for $20 a month, which is really an hour of your day. And then you also have where the officers who are carrying firearms have to pay for their own training, pay for the renewal of the certificates, all of that to do amalgamated job.
Is it too early to ask whether and to what extent there has been movement in any one of the many directions in which the administration must go to address, to the satisfaction of workers and their representatives, what the realities are?
So we willing to go, if you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, to the extent to which you are seeing movement.
Yes.
Or any commitment for the government as an administration to go in the direction that workers and their representatives want to see happen?
At the moment, what we have is discussions taking place. We have not seen any movement towards tangible movement as yet, but I say we are encouraged to address those issues. The one thing that they did, I want to apologize, the Inspectorate Division of the Ministry of Labor did go out and start to have inspections and indicate to some of the offending companies that they are paying the wrong rates for overtime, right? So I want to apologize that is a very positive indicator. That we would have put it out, and we congratulated the minister on that. We congratulated the inspectorate on it, right, for taking that goal set. And we encourage them to continue and go after not just the smaller ones who have been reporting, but go outside there, beef up the inspectorate division, and go outside there and tackle the big guys. The big guns who set the tone, tackle them also, so that it will be a leveler playing field for everyone. So we are encouraged from that perspective. So yes, I want to congratulate the government, the Minister of Labor, and those persons in the Ministry of Labor for taking that step, which was absent for the last couple of years as well.
Yeah, I don't want us to run out of time before we begin to discuss the issue about workers that you represented, estate police officers. I wouldn't call any single issue, but because there are so many, you start where you think is central to understanding how, in fact, someone in the position of a security guard is a distant relative work-wise from other workers in Trinidad and Tobago, how they have a package that is in need of, I'm trying to quote you on this, or to rephrase what you say on that. It is in need of urgent address.
Yes, urgency is correct. The issues concerning legislation, that is extremely important. The minimum wages order, the sectoral order needs to be addressed. The provision of annual leave, lawful provision of annual leave and for sick leave for security officers that need to be addressed immediately. People can't be working 100 and 2 or 3 and 400 hours for the year, for the month, in fact, and not be given rest and proper access to sick leave and all of that. The precepts, there's a long lag in which now the commissioner is issuing precepts and firearms as employee certificates. We have the issue of the amendments to the Supplemental Police Act, which we are currently reviewing for submission to the government for consideration. So those are the things. Most of our issues are legislative. There are laws that really does not benefit, right, to say the security industry, right? And we thought that we from our perspective, what we have seen documented, that there was a coming together of minds which decided that this particular set of people will be treated less than any other industry under which it falls within the jurisdiction of labor and China. We say that without fear of contradiction, that the security industry is a slave-like industry, and that we are dependent on this particular Minister of Labor from what he would have said, and we know from what he stands for, right, to assist the association to have those laws and how the industry structured in a positive manner, so that persons who work there will feel more inclusive of the engineer and including the national park. And that is where we want to focus on changing some of those laws and those practices that are outside there. So that's where we focus. I believe that answers your question.
Yeah, so to what extent you and your union feel, I'm not sure if comforted is a word, but by which the movement itself, as part of the government, the labor movement itself, as part of the administration, has had that on its list of matters to be addressed, whether urgently, whether profoundly, or what?
The engagement by the government ministers, willingness to meet by the government ministers, is encouraging. Okay?
Yeah.
The conversation thus far is encouraging. We have seen recently the Ministry of Labor put out on their website for persons who work in certain sectors, which includes all the private security officers, to do a survey probably on the conditions that they are accepted, subjected to, with a mind to inform the government on certain changes in the laws. So those things are very positive, right? So there is a process in which you can change the laws and convince other members of the cabinet that this needs to be done. And we see that process is engaging. We met with both the Minister of Homeland Security and the Minister of Defense to address some of the issues concerning safety and security of the officers. The fact that state police officers can only carry a limited amount of ammunition while they're on duty, and the caliber of weapons that they are facing outside there versus the caliber of weapons that they are authorized to carry. And so the engagement has been encouraging. The Commissioner of Police, we've written to the Commissioner of Police since June. We haven't had the benefit of meeting with the Commissioner of Police as yet. We hope that that is something happening soon. The Minister of Homeland Security did promise to try to facilitate that meeting, which is an important meeting. So yes, everything is looking in the direction of some positivity. And again, but we are always cautious that it's a long road, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, right? But in the interim, we know that because of where we are, because of the risk that is involved with our jobs, that there's certain urgent interventions that need to take place, and we are quite anxious for those things to happen in a short space of time.
Can you itemize one or two of what you say as urgent interventions?
Urgent intervention will be one. We want to have standards applied to bulletproof vests. we would have engaged with the Bureau of Standards since 2019 to 2022, somewhere around there, and for standards to be applied to bulletproof vests. At present, anybody could sew up a bulletproof vest home, put a tag on it, and sell it, or any cosmetic company could do that. Any security company could do that. So we say that there must be some standards attached to the importation of bulletproof vests. There must be some standards attached to when it expires and all of that. Testing. There must be more. We should have access to firepower, higher firepower, and our safety issues and the welfare issues, how we are housed. Some of those booths and them there, we have some suggestions as to the minimum standards that the security officer should function in the space, right? And we also, of course, the minimum wage issues for the security officers. And yeah, those are the main points that we want to address in the shortest of days.
How do you, well, this is a question about the views of some of your colleagues on the labor side regarding the performance and their notion of the suitability of some of the people at the industrial court to be addressing matters having to do with industrial relations in the country. And the issue about one of them seems to stand out more than the others. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I know quite well. You just Larry actually speaking of it.
Yes.
Well, from our information, we know that he is scheduled to leave office in November, right? We have been the victim of some judgments coming out from the special tribunal, which is called Larry Achong. Larry Achong has the record of taking the estate police judgment against the special tribunal, where they basically rule that he lacked the principles of impartiality and neutrality which should govern a body. So at present, he is out, thankfully, and we are waiting patiently to see the performance of the new panel. We are also mindful that the issue of the tenure of the judges in the industrial court is still subject to cabinet approval, and that is something that we definitely need to have because have reviewed, because you still don't want to have people who are appointed because of political affiliation. The courts must be free of any political influence whatsoever in the dispensation of justice. There is no place for that. So if a judge is because he was a Comrade Singh, who is now at the court, right? Being a past government, a past UNC minister, right? In a past dispensation, he is now at the court. So that issue has to be addressed, and if this government is serious about fixing the infrastructural inefficiencies and dangers that we see, then that is something that they want to think, because the comrades who are there, including Comrade Batiste, I know that was one of the issues that he would have had enunciated. Comrade Roger, the head of the Joint Trade and Movement, Comrade Anisette, right, have all pronounced upon the issue of tenure of judges and how the judges are appointed. So that is something that we from the association look forward to the government addressing in a positive manner.
So are there some of the judges who maybe not so much pro-labor, but tend to have a different view, have I would say more stylized approach in addressing worker issues and labor issues than others?
Well, the industrial court is the panels are comprised of lawyers, accountants, industrial relations professionals. So, and at the end of the day, what we want is for a fair hearing and dispensation. It's not about having a worker and one judge heavily leaning towards labor or heavily leaning towards business. But what we want is for you to be able to present on behalf of our members, present on behalf of workers in Trinidad and Tobago, and based on the strength of our argument, the strength of the industrial relation argument, the principles and practice of industrial relation, we are judged upon that, not to have external pressures, come upon the decision of the court. We are fully aware that some of the arguments that we present may not be the best, may not be because of certain constraints. Lawyers, the best of lawyers, senior counsels go before the court, right, and are struck down. What they do though is that they have, when they get a judgment, you may see that there's some semblance of thought and thing that what we have seen from our perspective is that, especially under this tribunal, that there was the absence of that. So we're not asking for the thing to be to put labor people inside and see about labor issues in the industrial court. And there's equal parties to the industrial court. The people who access that, the employers can access the industrial court the same way the employees can access the industrial court. What you want is even-handedness. You want a fair shake of the pie. You want to know that, well, okay, this is the judgment, and I read the judgment, I can see where the court is going, and say, well, okay, this is what we have to fix, right? So that is really what labor, from my understanding and my grouping, is asking for. We're not asking for an imbalanced court, we're asking for a balanced court.
Yeah. But what is the one thing, or what are the two most prominent issues for you as the leader of the organization that you represent, the State Police Association, to get addressed, let's say, in the parliamentary period of this administration? Reform of the minimum wages sectoral order, and the engagement of standards for bulletproof vests, and for the implement the Supplemental Police Act to be reviewed and discussed with the association, and for workers in this country, especially persons in my team, to have what we will call a living wage, right? We should not, this thing about minimum wage is really a misnomer, because inevitably it stays at minimum. So that is something that we wish that we would see in the short term, that there's a move to the implementation or the conversation that what you would call a living wage, where people do not have to work these long hours just to make ends meet. And most of the time they're not making the ends meet, and they are in huge debt. Their families are falling apart. So that, in the shortest of terms, that is what we would want to see implemented. We want the government to address as a short term, in the shortest of terms. And thus far, you're not seeing any stresses or strains in the discussions taking place?
Well, I think it's a bit too early to say. As I say, the conversations are encouraging, but it's a bit too early to say that there's any stress or things that of course, we would have liked things to happen, as yesterday. But we do understand that it is a process, and sometimes if you're trying to hasten up a process too much, sometimes you may make the wrong decisions. So we are going to be able to work with them, and I say, but mindful of that, if in our opinion, they decide to go in a way which we think is not in keeping with what is the workers' agenda, not in keeping with what is best for our people, we will reserve the right to say to the government, publicly or otherwise, that you are wrong on any issue.
So the relationship, the atmosphere, the atmospherics are still on the positive side, and it's probably...
Certainly, I could say to you without a shadow of a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt. No, we are not supposed to be political. We are political. But I can say to you without a shadow of a doubt. For what we have experienced in the last 100 and odd days, the last 6 months that this government, 6 or 7 months that this government has been in office, right, is extremely different to what we experienced under the PLM in the last 9 years. I can say that without fear of contradiction, there's enough evidence. The PLM have bought a bill which have gotten rid of the Estate Police Association, a private security industry bill. In TCL, in NIPDEC, in TSTT, all state companies under the last government. So hopefully these things don't have no repeat itself under this government, right? But so what that is what we saw, that those are the facts anymore, right? That people don't know that NIPDEC, the officers at NIPDEC were sent home and replaced by a company sent home, who replaced the officers down there, amalgamated security. In TSCT, amalgamated security is there, right? And in TCL, right? If I remember correctly, so we saw for the last 9 years that we were nearly to be replaced by private security in state companies, right? So you were losing the better paying job, the better conditions, being able to contribute more to NIS and all of that, right, under the last 9 years. And these are things that we can say freely because the facts, they are documented there.
Yeah. So the reality as it is rolling out, as it is unfolding, is not, let me say yet, to the point where it calls for more aggressiveness on the part of people like yourself. So it's an easy walk thus far, correct?
It's an put it that easy walk. Nothing in this realm will be easier. Yeah. But it's more of the relationship it's more encouraging. It's a more encouraging environment to be able to call upon a minister and write it and have him respond and have that meaningful conversation. And again, we would reserve judgment for a later date, but it is the environment that we have now is way better than we've had it for the last 9 years. So I don't think we should be getting overly aggressive with the government. We don't have a reason at this point in time to have him to be overly aggressive with the government. So that's just it. If there is a need to reserve the right, but right now, no, I cannot say that in all honesty.
All right. Well said, well put, my friend. Derek Richardson, head of the Estate Police Association, part of the Labour coalition that is part of the current administration in Trinidad and Tobago. Thanks very much for sharing this time with us, my friend.
Thank you very much, Andy. Thank you very much.
This has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
WESN.
I am Dr. Delphina Ovid, your friendly neighborhood dentist. At Community Hospital Dental Clinic, we offer examinations which include x-rays, basic oral cancer screening, and a treatment plan. We also offer cleanings, fillings, extractions, root canal treatment, and complete and partial dentures. Remember, you don't have to brush and floss all your teeth, just the ones you want to keep.
Give us a call